Hey, welcome back to Prepping with Sarge. So about 10 years ago, the CDC published a blog on their website titled something like, "If you're prepared for the zombie apocalypse, you're prepared for anything." Now, the idea at the time was that zombie movies were really popular and they thought this was a good way to try to entice people to get into preparedness. However, I think it was actually ended up being a bad idea in the long run. I'm going to tell you why. Stay with me now. All right, welcome back. Thank you for staying with me. So yeah, the idea there at the time was zombie movies were super popular. I think Resident Evil was like in its heyday, and trying to think of some of the other ones. 28 Days Later was really popular at the time. Dusk Till Dawn, the remake where they're in the shopping mall, that was super popular as well. All really fun zombie movies. I'm a big fan of zombie movie genre. But the idea was that if we could get people to think about preparing for the zombie apocalypse and make it kind of fun, that more and more people might be interested in getting into prepping and preparedness. Well, the end result of that was something that I started to see on forums and boards and pages about preparedness, where there's this mentality of that preparedness is only about the worst case scenarios of SHTF, the end of the world as we know it. And that's a big mistake in prepping. And here's why. It's very, very common on these types of forums and websites for people to say things like, well, I'm not saving any money because it's not going to matter when SHTF happens. Silver and gold will be worthless when SHTF happens. I've even seen people say things like, the only thing that will have value is bullets, beans, and Band-Aids, which those are good preps, make no doubt about it. What else? I've seen people say, just go ahead and run up your credit card to get whatever you need and don't have any intent to pay it off because they think like banks won't exist anymore. Well, the reality is, most prepping situations are short term and they are going to be resolved, and your government is going to still be there and the banks are still going to be there. And if you don't prepare for those kind of things, then you're much more likely to put yourself into a bad situation, right? That you're going to make potentially a bad situation much worse. As an example, let's say that you had one of the small SHTF situations you had was a storm in your area. And because you followed the advice of certain YouTubers who said, just charge up your credit card, get whatever you need, banks aren't going to exist anymore soon. Nobody's going to come and collect that debt, these kind of things. Well, lo and behold, you might have needed to have some preps for the storm, but then when that tree lands on your garage and you've got, huge expenses to replace all the things, insurance doesn't cover it all, in case you didn't know, then, if your idea was to just run up your debt, well, now you've created a whole nother problem for yourself, and you've created your own little personal SHTF situation. As for silver and gold, we've talked about this a number of times on this channel. You can check out any of my streams where I've talked about this. Historically, silver and gold has definitely had a place in SHTF situations. For over 2,000 years, it's survived the rise and fall of civilizations, and people have used it to escape from a bad situation in another country where there maybe was a war going on or things like that, and then they can convert anonymously, they can convert to a new currency in their new location, right? So silver and gold definitely have a place in SHTF situations. So if you're only thinking about the zombie apocalypse, and if you're only preparing for the zombie apocalypse, then yeah, maybe silver and gold don't really have a value there. But for every other situation, which is much more realistic, it actually does have a value. And I've actually spoken to some preppers in our community, YouTubers, who have had to sell off their silver and gold because they got into a financial SHTF situation or a personal SHTF situation. An unexpected medical situation happened, and that's what bailed them out. That's what helped, by selling their silver and gold, that's what helped them from getting into even further personal problems financially, right? So moral of the story is, the CDC, when they had this campaign, it was, the thought of it was like, let's make prepping fun. And zombie movies are fun, and prepping is fun. But you can't be thinking about only the end game, because that's the least likely scenario. When it happens, it's going to be really bad, and everybody's going to suffer. Even those who are prepared are going to suffer. But what's a guarantee is that you are going to deal with a lot of these smaller situations, these storms, recessions, medical issues. Those are all personal, smaller SHTF situations that are temporary. And yeah, you're still going to have to pay off your credit card. And yeah, silver and gold do matter in those situations, right? And so does other things like community, right? So don't be that lone wolf. Don't be that person who, you know, is on Facebook posting like this and that won't matter when SHTF happens, because you're neglecting the other pictures, all those events that lead up to, right? So let's say that we are in a downward cycle as a civilization. A lot of people think this. There's definitely some signs that point to that, right? Well, how long is that going to take? 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 50 years, 500 years? Like, nobody really knows. And there's a long time between here and there where those things, financial preparedness, still matters, okay? So just give this some thought. I hope this was helpful to you. If you got any value out of this, please consider giving me a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Keep planting your seeds, keep stacking your silver. This is Prepping with Sarge.